What's up, you guys? Welcome back to day 2 of the Bible reading plan together. Again, we are going off of this book, The Bible in 52 Weeks, a year-long Bible study. In the previous video, we read Genesis 1 through 4. Today, we're going to be going through Genesis 5 through 8. It sounds like a lot, but just in scanning these chapters, they are pretty short, so I feel like we'll get through this pretty quickly. I will admit my morning has already not started the best. My daughter woke up with her ankle feeling not the best. And so, that's the thing, life will happen, and then we will get off the train of reading our Bible, of praying, of fasting, of getting closer to God. And the most important thing that we need to do is seek God first, because in that seeking a God first, he will give us the peace and the wisdom and the guidance to get through the really real life hard things in our day. And so, if you're hopping on right now in this video, I encourage you to catch the first video with chapters 1 through 4. So that you can just join us in this journey of really just diving deep into God's word for the reasons of getting closer to God, of drawing closer to God, because in that drawing near to God comes peace and joy and wisdom and comfort, and just the confidence of knowing that if God is for us, then who can be against us? And truly, we can go through all of the hardships that we go through in our life. So let's just get right on into it. Again, in this video, we're going to be reading Genesis chapters 5 through 8 from this plan. I will list all of these. The lighting's not that great on showing this, but by the way, week 1 for this book, I don't think I mentioned this in the previous video, because again, we're going with the Bible in 52 weeks. Week 1 is titled, There's Nothing Too Hard for God. And I don't know about you, but when I read There's Nothing Too Hard for God, that is exactly what I need to hear this week. That is exactly the motivation that I need to keep going this week. Okay, because it has been a couple days, not the best days, but it is okay because God is working it out. Yes, he is. Okay, so we're going to be in chapter 5, which talks about the descendants of Adam. And so it starts off with this is the written account of the descendants of Adam. When God created human beings, he made them to be like himself. He created them male and female, and he blessed them and called them human. Now, I know when we read that, right, when we read that he created them male and female, I know one of the first thoughts, I know something that I think of in the world that a lot of people are going through right now in the world is confusion, is gender confusion, identity confusion. And, just to clarify, God was not confused when he selected you to be male or female. God was not confused. So don't go make, permanent decisions in your confusion. When we are making decisions in general, we should not move in confusion. We should not move in high emotion. We should not move in anger. We should not move in fear. When you are making decisions, you should have clarity. You should be clear on the path that you are taking and on the decisions that you are making. So again, God was not confused in how he chose to create you. And as if you are finding yourself, you're watching this and you're finding yourself that you are confused, that maybe you don't think you are what you biologically are, then I encourage you, before you make a drastic decision that you could regret, to draw near to God, to find your identity in him, because he will give you clarity and he will show you that there is a great purpose for your life. He has put gifts in all of us and he is expecting us to use those gifts for his kingdom, to help other people find him, find hope, and to have salvation through him in this world. Okay, let's move on. So verse 3, it says, when Adam was 130 years old, he became the father of a son who was just like him in his very image. He named his son Seth. After the birth of Seth, Adam lived another 800 years. Oh my gosh. And he had other sons and daughters. Adam lived 930 years and then he died. Sorry, you guys, I am going to mute this. There is a commercial in the background. There we go. Okay, so it says Adam lived 930 years and then he died. It says when Seth was 105 years old, he became the father of Enosh. After the birth of Enosh, Seth lived another 807 years and he had other sons and daughters. Seth lived 912 years and then he died. When Enosh was 90 years old, he became the father of Kenan. After the birth of Kenan, Enosh lived another 815 years and he had other sons and daughters. Enosh lived 905 years and then he died. We just got to get through this. Like, it's just kind of going through all of the descendants. I know I'm pronouncing all of these names incorrectly. To get the correct pronunciation, you could go to the Bible app and I'm sure that they are saying it accurately there. It says when Kenan was 70 years old, he became the father of Mahalalel. After the birth of Mahalalel, Canaan lived another 840 years and had other sons and daughters. Canaan lived 910 years and then he died. When Mahalalel was 65 years old, he became the father of Jared. After the birth of Jared, Mahalalel lived another 830 years and he had other sons and daughters. Mahalalel lived 895 years and then he died. When Jared was 162 years old, he became the father of Enoch. After the birth of Enoch, Jared lived another 800 years and he had other sons and daughters. Jared lived 962 years and then he died. Okay, so now we're on verse 21. It says, when Enoch was 65 years old, he became the father of Methuselah. I don't know. After the birth of Methuselah, Enoch lived in close fellowship with God for another 300 years. And he had other sons and daughters. Enoch lived 365 years. Wow, okay, so he lived 365 years walking in close fellowship with God. Then one day he disappeared because God took him. So he was in close fellowship with God, and then he disappeared because God took him. It says when Methuselah was 187 years old, he became the father of Lamech. After the birth of Lamech, Methuselah lived another 782 years and he had other sons and daughters. Methuselah lived 969 years and then he died. When Lamech was 182 years old, he became the father of a son. Lamech named his son Noah. Now we come to Noah. I do like the story of Noah. And it says, for he said, may he bring us relief from our work and the painful labor of farming this ground that the Lord has cursed. After the birth of Noah, Lamech lived another 595 years and he had other sons and daughters. Lamech lived 777 years and then he died. After Noah was 500 years old, he became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, I believe. And so now we are going to chapter 6. So see, that was all chapter 5, which pretty much had just talked about, again, the descendants of Adam. So we're going to chapter 6 where it says a world gone wrong. I think we've all heard the story of Noah's Ark. Just one second. Let me skip this and then I will unmute. Okay. So it says a world gone wrong. Then the people began to multiply on the earth and daughters were born to them. The sons of God saw the beautiful women and took any they wanted as their wives. Then the Lord said, my spirit will not put up with humans for such a long time, for they are only mortal flesh. In the future, their normal lifespan will be no more than 120 years. Did you guys get that? That's why like people barely live to 100 years old, because it's saying here like we were just so into our flesh, like just giving into the sins of our flesh, that God literally said in the future their normal lifespan will be no more than 120 years. Now you know why we don't live past 120. And so it says, verse 4 says, in those days, and for some time after, giant Nephilites, I think that's how you say it, lived on the earth. For whenever the sons of God had intercourse with women, they gave birth to children who became the heroes and famous warriors of ancient times. Wow. I'm telling you, the Bible is so interesting. I mean, like, if you actually read it, it's like, wow. It's kind of like, you know, those like romance novels. Some areas kind of remind me of that, because I mean, are you hearing this? It says they gave birth to children who became the heroes and famous warriors of ancient times. The Lord absorbed the extent of human wickedness on the earth, and he saw that everything they put or imagined he saw that everything they thought or imagined was consistently and totally evil. So the Lord was sorry he had ever made them and put them on the earth. It broke his heart. It broke his heart. Sin breaks his heart. And the Lord said, I will wipe this human race I have created from the face of the earth. Yes. And I will destroy every living thing, all the people, the large animals, the small animals that scurry along the ground, and even the birds of the sky. I'm sorry I ever made them. But Noah found favor with the Lord. I don't know about you, but I always pray for favor. I'm like, Lord Jesus, just please find favor on me. Like, please let everything that I do be pleasing to you. I think that when you come into a position, you have to choose, like, do you want to be pleasing to God, or do you want to be pleasing to people? And let me tell you, the more that you choose to be pleasing to God, the less that you are going to care what people think. The less that you are going to care what people think. Now, we want to love people, but we don't want to care what they think. We don't want their thoughts to hold us back from what God is calling us to do. Because sometimes God is calling us to do things, and I want to say a lot of the time, most of the time, that is out of our comfort zone, that is kind of like putting our ego like out there, like, because you're going to be like, I've never done this. Like, for me, God has called me to, you know, reach people for him, to share his hope, to share, you know, faith, having faith in hard times and all of these things. And when he was first calling me to do that, I'm like, no, like, I'm an introvert. I don't want to do that. I'll do things behind the scenes happily and comfortably, but I don't want to put my face forward and do these things that you're calling me to do, you know? And so you really have to just stay very close and connected to God, so that you have that boldness to do what he's calling you to do, because it does take courage. It does take boldness. It does take not caring what everyone's going to think about you. And if you do this, if you start a YouTube channel, if you write a song, if you, whatever he's calling you to do, you know, you have to stop caring what people think. Seriously, there is freedom in not caring what people think about you, and just moving forward in what the Lord has called you to do. So then we go on. It says, but Noah found favor with the Lord. And then we're reading in verse 9 where it says the story of Noah. This is the account of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man, the only blameless person living on earth at the time, and he walked in close fellowship with God. Noah was the father of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. I don't know, you guys, like, on these pronunciation, like, don't look to me for the pronunciation. I don't even know how to pronounce regular words correctly, okay? But I'm not going to stop that. I'm not going to let that stop me from moving forward. Like, no. Okay, so verse 11 says, now God saw that the earth had become corrupt and was filled with violence. God observed all this corruption in the world, for everyone on earth was corrupt. So God said to Noah, I have decided to destroy all living creatures, for they have filled the earth with violence. Yes, I will wipe them all out along with the earth. Build a large boat from cypress wood and waterproof it with tar inside and out. Then construct decks and stalls throughout its interior. Make the boat 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 75 feet wide and 45 feet high. Leave an 18-inch opening below the roof all the way around the boat. Put the door on the side and build 3 decks inside the boat, lower, middle, and upper. So, I find that very interesting, the details of this, because when God calls you to do something, you're always like, but how? What am I going to say? What am I going to do? And God doesn't leave details out. Like, he needs you to trust to just go do it, and he will give you everything. He will supply every need to get that done. So don't worry about whether you're equipped, because if he called you, you're already equipped to do it, or he wouldn't call you to do it. Like, he's not trying to look like a fool, and he can't, because he's God. So verse 17 says, look, I am about to cover the earth with a flood that will destroy every living thing that breathes. Everything on earth will die, but I will confirm my covenant with you. So enter the boat, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring a pair of every kind of animal, a male and a female, into the boat with you to keep them alive during the flood. Pairs of every kind of bird and every kind of animal and every kind of a small animal that scurries along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. And be sure to take on board enough food for you, your family, and all the animals. So Noah did everything exactly as God commanded him. Now we're in chapter 7, where it says the flood covers the earth. So we're halfway through, you guys. We just need chapter 7 and chapter 8. So now we're going along with the flood covers the earth. So chapter 7 again, when everything was ready, the Lord said to Noah, go into the boat with all your family, for among all the people of the earth, I can see that you alone are righteous. Sometimes you are the only one standing. Keep standing, because God sees you. And it says, take with you 7 pairs, male and female, of each animal I have approved for eating and for sacrifice, and take 1 pair of each of the others. Also take 7 pairs of every kind of bird. There must be a male and a female in each pair to ensure that all life will survive on the earth after the flood. 7 days from now, I will make the rains pour down on the earth, and it will rain for 40 days and 40 nights until I have wiped from the earth all the living things I have created. So Noah did everything as the Lord commanded. Okay. We're on verse 6, and we're almost done. Honestly, we are almost done. So we're up here on verse 6, and then this is chapter 8, and this is chapter 9. So we literally just have from here to here. Okay. So, verse 6 says, Noah was 600 years old when the flood covered the earth. He went on board the boat to escape the flood, he and his wife and his sons and their wives. With them were all the various kinds of animals, those approved for eating and for sacrifice, and those that were not, along with all the birds and small animals that scurry along the ground. They entered the boat in pairs, male and female, just as God had commanded Noah. After 7 days, the waters of the flood came and covered the earth. Verse 11, when Noah was 600 years old, on the 17th day of the 2nd month, all the underground waters erupted from the earth, and rain fell in mighty torrents from the sky. The rain continued to fall for 40 days and 40 nights. Verse 13 says, that very day Noah had gone into the boat with his wife and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, I don't know, and their wives. With them in the boat were pairs of every kind of animal, domestic and wild, large and small, along with birds of every kind. 2 by 2 they came into the boat, representing every living thing that breathes. A male and female of each kind entered, just as God had commanded Noah. Then the Lord closed the door behind them. For 40 days, the flood waters grew deeper, covering the ground and lifting the boat high above the earth. As the waters rose higher and higher above the ground, the boat floated safely on the surface. Finally, the water covered even the highest mountain on the earth, rising more than 22 feet above the highest peaks. All the living things on earth died: birds, domestic animals, wild animals, small animals that scurry along the ground, and all the people. Everything that breathed and lived on dry land died. God wiped out every living thing on the earth: people, livestock, small animals that scurry along the ground, and the birds of the sky. All were destroyed. The only people who survived were Noah and those with him in the boat, and the flood waters covered the earth for 150 days. So if you're wondering how long the flood waters covered the earth, it was 150 days. Let's skip that. I mean, commercial. Okay. So now we're on chapter 8. We're on the last chapter. And this is where it talks about the flood recedes. So again, if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to do that right now. Pause the video, subscribe so you can continue to get all of these videos. The whole goal is to get this Bible read by the end of the year. And I know that we can do it. Let's keep going. You're on the train. You got a ticket. Let's keep moving forward. So let's read the last chapter for today, which is chapter 8, the flood recedes. But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and livestock with him in the boat. He sent a wind to blow across the earth, and the floodwaters began to recede. The underground water stopped flowing, and the torrential rains from the sky were stopped. So the floodwaters gradually receded from the earth after 150 days. Exactly 5 months from the time the flood began. Wow. So 5 months from the time the flood began, the boat came to rest on the mountain of Ararat. I know that's not how you say that. Ararat. Ararat? I don't know. 2.5 months later, as the waters continued to go down, other mountain peaks became visible. After another 40 days, Noah opened the window he had made in the boat and released a raven. The bird flew back and forth until the floodwaters on the earth had dried up. He also released a dove to see if the water had receded. Let me move this sticky, which says God's promises. Can you see that? No. Okay, well. So it says, let's see. Yes. So it says, and released the raven. The bird flew back and forth into the floodwaters on the earth had dried up. He also released a dove to see if the water had receded and it could find dry ground. But the dove could find no place to land because the water still covered the ground. So it returned to the boat, and Noah held out his hand and drew the dove back inside. After waiting another 7 days, Noah released the dove again. This time, the dove returned to him in the evening with a fresh olive leaf in its beak. Then Noah knew that the flood waters were almost gone. He waited another 7 days and then released the dove again. This time, it did not come back. So now he knew like the dove was able to land somewhere, and so it didn't come back, right? Verse 13 says, Noah was now 601 years old on the first day of the new year. On the first day of the new year, 10.5 months after the flood began, the flood waters had almost dried up from the earth. And Noah lifted back the covering of the boat and saw that the surface of the ground was drying. 2 more months went by, and at last the earth was dry. So talk about patience. Like, you just have to be patient until it's ready, until things are ready for you. Then God said to Noah, leave the boat, all of you, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Release all the animals, the birds, the livestock, and the small animals that scurry along the ground, so they can be fruitful and multiply throughout the earth. So Noah, his wife, and his sons and their wives left the boat, and all the large and small animals and birds came out of the boat pair by pair. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and there he sacrificed as burnt offerings the animals and birds that had been approved for that purpose. And the Lord was pleased with the aroma of the sacrifice and said to himself, I will never again curse the ground because of the human race, even though everything they think or imagine is bent toward evil from childhood. I will never again destroy all living things. As long as the earth remains, there will be planting and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night. And that concludes chapter 8. Tomorrow we will be reading Genesis chapter 9 through 12. So let's just keep at it. Thank you guys for joining me on this Bible reading. Okay, bye.